I'm just up in the middle of the night and can't sleep. And a lot of things happened in the last 24 hours. It's made me just reflect on just my kitty cat is down there. Just reflect on a lot of what I've been reading, what I've been looking at, and what my thoughts are now. And I realized as I'm like lying in bed and I'm just going over everything, and I'm like, I really fundamentally have changed in the last little while because of the last few books that I've read. And my philosophy has, I don't even know how to explain it, but there was a way that God always spoke to me. And there was a way that I always knew Him. And I understood when I was younger. And there were certain things that really disturbed me that about mankind and about the way that we do things, and just how I could always see that there would be a way of peace, and how I envisioned paradise to be, I guess, really what it comes down to. What He implanted in my spirit of what the perfect world would be. And my envision of that perfect world was, well, Isaiah prophecy is the lion will lie down with the lamb. And just that whole, I've spent many hours in my life, many days envisioning what that would have been like. And I just saw, a world where there was just harmony between nature and between man and animal. And we would never eat an animal. We would be in care of them as we were supposed to be in the beginning, in the garden of, to the animals and stuff. We know that introducing to even eat meat didn't even happen until after Noah. Prior to that, it was not. They ate fruit and vegetables, and I always was confused by the sacrifices that Abel and Cain gave. It just seemed to be odd that God accepted a blood sacrifice as to the fruit of the earth. But he wanted to have one of his beautiful creatures to be his life to be taken. And I never understood, and I never felt comfortable about God finding that to be a sweet odor. In that there are certain things that in the Bible it says that God found to be pleasant in His nostrils, and that was like to have the suffering of the evil and stuff like that, to have their suffering up to Him, things like that. Just my spirit rejected. That's all I can say is my spirit rejected that description of God. And my spirit always gave me a description of this God that looks upon us as sad more than judgmental, and wishes that we would live in the harmony that He had originally meant for the earth. And when you look at the, just the concept of the Garden of Eden, right? That He said, I give you every tree of the earth, and as food, as meat, and then the animals it talked about in the beginning in Genesis and stuff. And so my whole perspective changed once I read a number of books from the Hagamadi library. I started reading those. Like I've read a lot of the apocryphal books. I mean, there's thousands and thousands. It's just, you could read for the rest of your life and never ever stop. There's so many, and it's just to distinguish between, kind of, there were certain philosophies, certain time periods where there you can see now there's writings that are certain time periods. They're kind of trying to push a certain philosophy in a lot of these writings. So I've come to be able to read enough of them that I can kind of categorize. I guess, I'm not saying I'm an expert, but I've kind of been able to categorize as to see where they were trying to lead you with certain writings and stuff, even apocryphal, like, because I don't believe every single one of every single writing is the truth, and the Bible isn't. But I do believe that there's a lot of apocryphal that rightly shouldn't be in there, but are just as valuable to read because you get a history of what the people were thinking at the time. So I look at some of them, it's not that I take every piece of information and I say, this is what it is. But there are a lot of apocryphal books, like I think it's the Book of Truth that's in that, gets missed. People don't look at. And that goes along with the Hagamati, a lot of the books in the Hagamati. And there is the Book of Peace, and there is the then there is this book that was found in a Tibetan monastery, and that is the Book of the Holy 12. And I don't know if I've really talked about it, but once I've read and I don't think I've completed it, but that's where I don't think I completed the Book of the Holy 12, and I'm actually waiting for a hard copy. Because that was supposed to be written by the Apostle John, and because heresy actually did start to creep in really quick, where the Romans and the Jewish factions and stuff like that wanted to stop the movement, the movement of truth, of what Jesus was really, the movement that he had started. And so, and it was flourishing, this movement. And so they started to put in a lot of false writings and even false preachers, because it's written about. We've got that in the Bible, right? It's just to distinguish between what those false writers were. We just assumed that everything that was put inside the canon of the Bible were of the ones that were not. But, I've gone through the Bible and the history of the Bible, and it's not reliable. For my spirit says it's not reliable, because there's been so much manipulation with the people that are controlling us right now. And they have used it politically, and they have used people called correctors to change the original Gospels. And they also spent a great deal of time in the witch hunts and the burning of books and libraries, so that his message would not be fully understood. And they changed it. And what they changed it to, at least from, if you read these other books that were supposed to be hidden for all this time and have not been manipulated and are older than any transcripts that we got, except for the Book of Mark, which is just one page, both sides. And we don't know if it's the Book of Mark. I don't think that they can absolutely prove that. I could be wrong, but from what I understand, it's like an original gospel, but it goes along a line with these books just as well, because it's not a full and complete. It's just one page. And then the next it's like 100, about, okay, so that would be about, they put the Book of Mark as early that piece of uh, um, parchment that they have as early as the 8040. So, I mean, that really brings us right in the time. So, very, very soon after all of these events. But it's not a complete story, it's just, one page. And then I think the next, they're saying that the book of Matthew was supposed to be written later. I think that probably was the book of Matthew. I think the book of the Holy 12 was probably the gospel, and then a lot of the gospels were transcribed, and what you're seeing is them doing a bit of a manipulation with the text, with the Matthew, Mark, Luke, John. What you see, I think there's a lot of that, because there's a lot of the words throughout. Many people have done research on the similarities, the exact similarities, many times in all of these different books, showing that they were copies of copies of copies of each other. So they probably are telling one story, but that's why they were changed, because it was political and they changed it. And so we put it in as different accounts, and that's why they do have differences in them, because they were of probably different times and different um, accounts of the same, but just the church doing what they do. That being said, and I'm not, because I believe in Jesus. I honestly do believe in Jesus, but there is so much that I've found that I have to be honest about, that the corruption from these texts to what we see in the King James. In King James, you got all of these different Bibles. No matter how you look at them and slice the bread, they all say the same story. They may be slightly different, but they all say the same story. They all kind of lead you along the same path. And it's not the same path that these other books lead you to. And to me, my spirit has transformed. I've become I understand so much more now. And I know most people say a heresy or what I'm saying, but it is so much. It comes right down to the original. It comes down to what was the original lie that happened with the Israelites, or with the Bible, was when they changed "Thou shalt not kill," and they put it exclusively for men. That command was, "Thou shalt not kill any living thing." So, because every single one of those things were equal to us, in that they had the breath of life, they were made from the same substance, and they were just as precious to God as we are. It's our arrogance that has made it so that we think that their life means less, and so we trap them and eat them and do all kinds of hideous things and grow them and leave them in buildings with darkness, and until we consume their flesh. What we've done is what the Bible, what happened, what they corrupted in the Bible, is they made the Bible pagan, because those were the pagans that did those things. The pagans did the sacrificing. The pagans didn't just sacrifice humans. It's a pagan thing to sacrifice. That wasn't a God thing. These other ones bring out that those were the corruptions that they brought in at a time when God was trying to instruct them to be peaceful, and the original message was peace, harmony with all, to know where your food is, and not to look at another creature that God has created as being your food, but to protect them as you are supposed to be their guardian, to enjoy them, to allow them to inhabit the earth freely, to not be afraid of us. I think the biggest message that Jesus came to bring back was to free the animals. We look at them as being nothing. We look at them as we just think of our own salvation, and we think about what we are, and oh, God's going to save us, God's going to save us, and we just don't even think about them, that he created them. And then we just, all of this stuff about, demon seed and all of that is just all made it so that we go around killing each other. Not realizing it doesn't matter. God still put the spark of life in each other. But because the scriptures have been warped, that we think about things that are not even in the heart of God, as he told us about. He never thought about sacrificing children, and he thinks of the animals as children. So these books, the Book of the Holy 12, really clenched it for me. I understand because it's in my spirit. It spoke in my heart. Spoke in my heart the moment that I really just could really understand. You got to be able to understand the deception to be able to accept the true word of Jesus, what he came for. He didn't come to sacrifice himself for our sins. He came to set us back on the path of life instead of the path of death that we're on. The book of Revelation that I put out there, the Essene book of Revelation, it doesn't talk about God being cruel to us and bringing about this to us. It talks about us bringing Armageddon by our actions, by the way that we act as people, because we are primitive and we think that we are superior, and we lord it over, and we enslave everything that is around us, and we put everything under our will, instead of seeing the beauty and the appreciation of everything that God has given us. This is one of the things that you see that happened in the recent past, is all the trees that got destroyed, especially around the 1900s. There has been great evil that has happened. So when I say the kingdom has happened, I don't see the kingdom the same as I used to. I don't see the kingdom. It wasn't 1,000 years. It wasn't, that revelation wasn't true. That was part of the manipulation for your mind to get trapped in all of this, wondering what day is the Sabbath, what festival we should go back to. All of those laws, those were not the laws God gave. Those were Moses' laws. And that's what Jesus kept on saying. He referred to them as Moses' laws, not his laws. Oh, I know I'm sounding like I'm angry, and I am in some ways, because when you start to see how this beautiful message, and when I look back at what I believe to be what people call Tartaria, which I don't. I think that's just the name. I've found the reason for the name, and I just don't even care about going through that anymore, because it is so just part of the Israelites. It's a Celtic name, and it's part of that whole Druid line became the Israelites, that became the chosen, that got it really wrong. That got it really, really wrong and became pagan again. And then called everything else, called the people that loved the earth, loved the animals, paid attention to the seasons and things like that, called them pagans. And that was supposed to be bad. That was the original people. That was the original Hebrews. Those were the people. The ones that loved everything and treated everything with passion and kindness, and grew gardens, and those were his people. The pagans were the ones that sacrificed and ate the flesh. Those were the pagans, and those are what we are. And we need to get the paganism the blood sacrifice out of our belief system in worshiping God, in our hearts as well. He never wanted sacrifice. He wanted obedience. He wrote it on our hearts. If you read these books, if it's written on your heart, you'll see. But it is on my heart. Now I see the truth. I see where we went wrong as a society, why we become so greedy, why we cannot see clear, why we are full of parasites and we're allowing parasites to control us, why we are so unhealthy, why we die so young when people used to live for great lengths of time, but yet we die so young because we eat death. We don't eat live. We don't eat anything living anymore. It's all GMO'd. It doesn't have seeds in it. We eat the flesh of animals. We eat everything that's dead. We are what we eat. We are Mother Earth. We are from the earth. We are the elements of the earth. We are not separated from the earth. It is as our mother. And if we don't treat our mother with respect and we don't appreciate what she gives us, well, we don't get to live long on her. It's only when we follow these principles that we want for the future, for the kingdom, the one that we always say that we want, the one that we think that we deserve to go into, because we pray and we say a prayer, or we want to do a festival or have a daytime of, Sabbath, and we do all of these rituals and everything like that, but we continue to still live in the mental prison of this pagan world that we're in, and refuse to see the true message of what God would truly be like, to put a paradise. And we think the paradise has to be something that he gives us, or that he puts us to, and not realizing that the paradise, as he's said, and we're not able to take it out of the Bible, is in your heart. So when we see these buildings that they didn't have bathrooms from that time when they were making these magnificent buildings, do you think maybe those people had the kingdom in their heart, and that they were living by this food restrictions, or did not even consider their beautiful cow that gave them milk to chop up and put on a grill? And maybe that's why those people were living so long and they were able to build as much as they were able to do, because they were eating life, not death. So anyways, these are all the thoughts that are going through my head. I think it's like 3:30 in the morning right now. And these are what has been transformed in my heart. And I see this now as being the truth of Jesus. It wasn't about his blood sacrifice. It truly wasn't. And that's where it was about transforming your heart to see life and to keep life going. I guess how good our God is, and how blessed I am to be able to see this, and how big of a burden this is going to be, because it nobody gets received well when they're told that this was the message of Jesus. Nobody will ever accept it unless you have the heart of God already in you. I love y'all. Live and love light.